Excellent, Carter here, and I want to talk about decoration again. I want to decorate the floor of my sewer level. I want to add some detail to it. And what I'm doing now is I'm doing some research. I want to talk a little bit about research. I've got Google Images open. I just put in sewer tunnel. I'm going to get a huge number of images. A couple tips about research. What I would stay away from is anything that is video game-ish. When you do visual research, if you're just pulling up other people's depictions of things, all you're going to do is it's of limited worth. You know, you're getting something interpreted through the eyes of some other creator. What I think is far more interesting is to go back to original source material and find new things. Of course, there's not too much new you're going to get with sewers. Sewers are being done to death in video games, but there are some things. I have an idea of how to decorate the floor, and I was just looking around for some visual ideas. I want unusual things. This would be a cool ceiling. Unfortunately, ceilings don't do much for us in Alien Swarm. This is better. These kind of round sewers are, I worked a little bit in mining, doing a game project for the mining industry once. Round tunnels tend to be drilled underground. Square tunnels tend to be built into the ground, like excavated with an open top and then covered over. Anyway, I'm just looking for ideas here to add detail to the ground. See, things like this you can run into unusual ideas, like people living in the sewers, this kind of thing. So, but details like these kind of like knickknacks, like these odd pipes. Those don't even look like pipes. They look like hydraulic pressure lines, and these kind of like old, like this looks like an old thing that was left over from when the sewer was built 100 years ago, and it's since been sealed off, that sort of thing. It helps to have. I've actually gone into an abandoned mining facility, not into the mine itself, but through the processing mills, the different stirring tanks and going underneath the tanks, that kind of thing. It's dangerous, but if you're going to do that shit, by the way, I'll give you one piece of advice: avoid confined spaces, because you can go into a confined space and die. So if you go into something that's old and abandoned, you could walk into a room full of noxious gases and fall unconscious and then die. So that's a warning. But I'll tell you, there's nothing that makes up for first-hand experience. Things like these stairways built into it, and look at this ornate brickwork. Like, why on earth would they have that in a sewer? Anyway, so let's get back to. Look at this. Looks like they're dredging out. They're clearing it out. So you'll see occasionally. This is the kind of detail you add, a detail like this, and it looks like the sewer is still functioning and operating. You may want to do things like that. You may not always want to do stereotypical ancient old. See, this is interesting. This is this sewer is carved directly out of rock, like an old mine, with old rock face here, but like conduits for, looks like telephone cables or something. Wow, no, this is ancient. Old Paris. Old sewers in Paris. See, you can think of look, they've got like some kind of a truck here to move cargo back and forth. Now this is a game. I don't want to look at games. Okay, look at that, eh? There's interesting detail there. But you want to get to unusual and different ideas. What on earth is this? Paris Sewer Museum in 1920. Wow, look at that. Lots of interesting detail there. This is air ventilation. Something I learned about in mining. And a great thing to do is once you've, gathered these photos, I have a huge library of this reference images. When I was doing mission 6, I wanted to put water treatment facilities in, so I gathered this huge library of images. This is the kind of thing you want to do. You want to build a library of source images. Look at those pumps, eh? This is a pump mechanism which is being opened up. This is a water filtration system. These kind of details will come in handy later on. It would put this to capture things like floating logs, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, these. Yeah. This is way more. This kind of research is worth a lot more than playing other video games. You're just going to wind up reinventing the wheel. You're going to wind up duplicating some other game designer's vision of something if you do that. But if you go to the source material, even if you fictionalize it and add new ideas to it, you're going right back to the metal. Little details like the stirring fork or whatever that is. Digested sludge. Combined waste digested sludge. These little things, eh? What is that? What is this guy here? Those kind of details. And of course pipes. Yeah, loads of pipes. There's two basic philosophies about putting in decorating with a lot of these things. If you can take kind of an impressionistic approach where you're just sort of, wow, you want to just slap in tons of pipes and everything. And Valve does that a lot. Well, a lot of video game artists do that. Only thing is, I prefer to try to get a little bit more detail, realistic detail, and the reason why is because when you put in realistic detail, your audience, when your audience looks at a kind of an abstracted version, see, this was a photo I used to as a reference to build the catwalks in Mission 6. When you put in realistic details, when your audience plays and replays stuff, the closer they look at the world, the more depth it has, the more they see in it. The more alive it seems. When you just sort of melange it, or when you make things as a pastiche, you just slap in hundreds of pipes and tanks and everything, and when you initially look as a gamer, you look at it and it looks cool, you can get good lighting. Only thing is, when you replay it and you think, if you ever contemplate it a little bit more closely, it begins to look just like a piece of art and less like a real world, in my opinion. I guess it depends on how much effort you want to put in. Somehow though, players can sense these things, you know. Truth is stranger than fiction. You want to include these details, you know, because, you know, things like having this guy here, right? Nobody would think, what the hell? But when you think about it, it makes sense. A pallet with boxes on it, you know, that makes sense. You know, little details like wood on the edges. Electronics with wires coming out of them, sitting beside pipes, this kind of thing, eh? These kind of details. Makes sense, like this beam is anchored into concrete below, and this thing here is just added as basically to keep things from falling down into that crack, people and tools, that sort of thing. You know, like, oh, there's so much detail that you can just look at this stuff for ages. But it's good to add these things. Generators sitting out in the middle of nowhere with control panels. Here, these little ribbity things, these little teeth. They put these here to keep pigeons from building nests on the beam tops. Probably to keep lots of things from sitting on top of there. Yeah, and things being constructed. Yeah, so I have this huge library, all these things. This is just for water systems. This is cool, eh? See, the pipes go down, but there's metal here with a gap. If you just put pipes go down straight into flat concrete, there's less depth. The metal here suggests there's more shit down below. There is. This is a photo of a real system. Yeah, and of course in a game, in an Alien Swarm, you want to make this into a grating. I think it is a grating, but you want to make it into a grating and then put lighting below there. So this is something I really need to do for my pipe set. I need to build valves, actual valves, not just. I stuck a couple wheels onto connecting, you know, brackets or whatever, but that's not. This is more like a real valve. You can see the mechanism inside it too. You crank this thing and it turns sideways. It just rotates, either closed or open. You know, power cables. That's a big thing in for decorating floors. We'll get into that. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta go to research. Original research. Yeah, look at that, eh? Those would be like generators or something. Those kind of pipes are, God, they're great. They're just hard to implement, you know. There's a lot of cutting and pasting. And we're back at the start.